Lovely. So it gives me great pleasure to hand the meeting over to you, Kimia, who will be sharing for 45 minutes on step 11. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Michael, John, and everybody in service. Welcome, everybody. And those of you who are returning, maybe you're just here for the first time, maybe you're coming back to program, you're allowing us to celebrate your existence. Thank you for that gift. And I want to thank Chanel, for your amazing patience through this process. What a true demonstration of all of your steps, and specifically step 11, the patience and grace you have shown in this process of securing me to speak at this meeting has been ever inspiring. So thank you. Thank you for serving and for demonstrating that spirit. Yeah, thank you and welcome again. And so we are here on the topic of step 11. Maybe some of you have gone through the steps, maybe you haven't. If you haven't, someone in this room wants to work with you. Someone has done the work so they can pass it on to you. So perhaps by the end of this talk, you will have the willingness to either offer what has been passed on to you, or you will ask so you can receive. I hope that the message that will be received today is one that is already resonating from within, because it exists within you. It's nothing that you're going to hear in newness, but perhaps something will come through that speaks a little bit louder than it has before. And it's not just particularly on the topic of step 11, but this spirit around step 11 that's ever alive in all of the steps. This consciousness around a relationship that needs enlargement and maintenance. And so I'm hopeful that you will give this a consideration and just allow this talk to become its own meditative way of receiving. Understanding the information is not new in terms of what you're receiving. So if your ears are overworking because they just want to hear all that there is to hear, know that your heart already knows. And so on this topic, we get to talk about first of all, the importance of this step in particular, and this principle of spiritual awareness. We have worked up until 10 for us to be in 11, but I do not believe that I have been free from this very practice of spiritual awareness and a conscious contact. And throughout all the steps, it's been right there. And so I get to put that into perspective. I get to see that, yes, in my admission that my disease is actually much bigger than me, and I need to put my hand up and say I am powerless. I'm handing that power to a conception. Maybe that conception has not even been formed yet. And so to any of us in this room that have a conception of a higher power, I come from an atheist, agnostic background. I live in a household. My parents, my family is agnostic and atheist. I'm the only person who actually utters the word God. And I've made my amends with that word. And today I get to sit with the ease and peace that that word brings to me. So you pick your own conception, whatever is the word. Maybe it's a color. Maybe it's a sensation. Maybe it's a scent. Maybe it's a memory. Maybe it's nature. Maybe it's the mother. Whatever it is for you. This consciousness of step 11 is also in step 2 with me. I make a decision, these decisions are being made. I become willing to hand it over to a power, not even calling it God, to a power that will allow me to be restored to sanity. In my step 3, I'm willing to turn my will and my life over to that power. There's a lot of trust that comes with that. That relationship is already being built. And so this perception that by step 11, I start meditating. Meditation is not just a prescription of this particular step. It's a lifetime form, a way of living. And so in step 4, I have courage. Courage is consciousness. It's a principle. It's whole and complete. It's not a blockage. It's a principle. There's a lot of higher consciousness already in that. And I get really humbled, and in my integrity in step 5, I get to lay it out to another person, to myself, to God. And so 6 and 7, that higher consciousness has already been welcomed. I have been ready. I have declared my readiness. I will continue to declare my readiness for multiple folds of character defects and blockages to be removed so I can continue to stay in this way of life in 8 and 9, and a manful way of life appears. I do not believe it's possible to do that without a power that actually restores me to a way of life that is God consciousness. It's impossible to be forgiving and helpful without this conscious contact with the one that is actually non-judgmental, not absolute in its ways, gives me room to make mistakes. And in that higher consciousness, I get to see a lot of things being revealed to me. So by step 10, I'm in this constant contact of taking in daily, nightly inventory, something that I've already picked up in step 4. In step 10, I get to really have that time with a consciousness that's now, it is within me, yes. The voice is becoming louder and louder. Some of us identify with the something told me. That something is a higher consciousness. I can now distinguish the sound of my lyre, a parasite that convinces me I am it. In that conviction, I believe I am my disease. But in a higher consciousness, I can see that that conviction and the process of convincing is happening. And so I get to come out of that, not through a defeated self, but by a self that is of a higher essence. And it trusts that essence. And so by step 11, this way of life has already been formed. Again, I don't get to this step to start this seeking through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God. In my disease, I am so quick to start praying for my selfish ends. But in my recovery, I'm going to step till step 11 to see that this space is of need. It's of essence. No, it's not going to work like that. The essentials are honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. To have the honesty to tell the full truth. Yes or no answers, no in-betweens. To show up and do the work. To have the open-mindedness to lay aside the prejudice and assess the program for itself. And so I get to improve this consciousness in step 11, sought through prayer and meditation, to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood God. There you go. Praying only full knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. That power to carry that out is agency. God's will is purpose. The purpose of helpfulness to God and God's children. The agency that I thought I forgot when I said I'm powerless. No, I regained agency when I said, this disease is bigger than me. I am going to quit playing the all-knowing, the omniscient power of all, and I'm going to ask for help. My life has become manageable. I am beyond human aid. And this disease is centered in the mind. In the book, it tells us that the manifestation is through different ways. And the first common way being the resentments, we consider it as common manifestations. So there is an it that has manifestations. And so through that, what is it I'm reaching for? This step is asking me to start really reaching for the power that cannot be found in a bottle, cannot be found in a person, a place, a thing, a fantasy of an ideal life or recovery. And I have to be very aware of the idolization and idealization that comes through recovering and really knowing this work. Even that knowing is not mine. The higher conscious contact allows me to have a wisdom that discerns between what is true, what is false. I have a disease that convinces me I do not know better. And when I don't, there are tools. 12 steps to get to all of my problems. 12 solutions to all of the drama I live in life. And so on step 11, the suggestion is talking to God and meditating, listening to God. And do I have the willingness to do this? I am really good at talking to God. I'm really good at treating God like it's my staff. a list of things I would like for you to get done. Here's the deadline. The same way I would treat my step 6 and 7. Why isn't this being lifted from me? Why isn't anger and resentment being lifted from me? Why do I keep calling it my resentments? They're not even mine. And so when I submit that list to the higher power, I'm treating like, my staff. I'm not staying for the meditation part of listening. The listening part of this also means sometimes I'm going to be listening to silence. And how many of us have taken that silence to be some kind of a notion that God's not listening, I'm not hearing, I'm not doing this right? There you go. The defeated self picks itself up again and it tries to convince me that I can't even talk to God or listen to God. That the access to that power through which has brought me up until today in my existence in this room is absolutely negated. It does not exist. In one moment, I become the agnostic that a whole chapter has been written about. And so this step brings me back to that. What is the maintenance work that is needed proactively for this agnostic to be reduced in size in shorter windows of insanity or maybe death? Just blackout moments. Or maybe a moment where I start feeling like, oh, that is coming up. Okay, that's higher consciousness. It says we pause when agitated or doubtful. It takes a lot of consciousness for me to know when I am agitated and doubtful. We take resentments even with that which we may not have a relationship to. Why? Because I'm a type 3 addict that picks things up, cannot drop it, does not have any control over how much she has taken. And so, without knowing, I've picked up the resentment of the world. And so in this step, I'm being reminded through this conscious contact, I get to retire at night with a constructive review of my day. Not into that drift of remorse, worry, and morbid reflection of what have I done? Have I been resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? That's a step 10 question. Do I owe an apology? It's step 8 and 9. Have I kept something to myself that I should be discussing with another person at once, fast, quick, right away, no half measures? Who is that person? A big book sponsor, someone who can receive it and be unaffected. Not my immediate family, not my friends, not for people who do not have program or maybe are not subject matter experts, like a properly appointed authority that's a therapist, a doctor. This book says there are a good amount of good people out there doing this work, right? So who am I even taking this to? There's an element of responsibility in this spiritual awareness. And so I meditate and reflect when I review my day. I don't sit there and think about or allow this disease to have a full-out takeover of how bad I have performed, of how all of my shortcomings mean that I cannot do this. The point is to see, were we kind, loving towards all, which means less paperwork. What could I have done better? That's a step 9 approach towards life. The most responsible way I can show up as opposed to drifting into that morbid self-reflection, that worry and anxiety that gives rise to a fear that is paralyzing. Was I thinking of myself most of the time? Why am I asking this question? I have a disease of self. The defeated self convinces me I am that which is defeated. And so every day waking up trying to be a better self is not going to work. Putting it in the hands of this contact, which allows me to see my higher self, might. And so was I thinking of myself? Was I thinking of what I could do for others? Of what I could pack into the stream of life? Right? Which is a step 12 mannerism. It's a manner of living life. We must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, morbid self-reflection. Why? Because those of us who know this disease is fatal and futile know worry, remorse, morbid reflection means insanity and death in a split second. And for that would diminish our usefulness to others. That's our purpose of existence. And so after making our review, we ask God's forgiveness. Notice it doesn't say, I ask my sponsors forgiveness, my best friend's forgiveness, those I have harmed's forgiveness. It says God is sending me to the source. Why am I buying my spiritual awakening at bulk, trying to put it away and use it for days when I can have it fresh from a full-time power? All I gotta do is plug into that power bar and we all get to light up. Something changes, even in the midst of darkness. And I inquire what corrective measures should be taken, built into it, step 8 and 9, an amendful way of life. A profound alteration to my reaction to life. What corrective measures could be taken? I noticed most of the time, the corrective measure is built into the pause. The moment I pause, the moment I am one breath in, one breath out, shoulders away from your ears, soften that space between your eyebrows, relax the jaw, wiggle your fingers and your toes, you're still here. How else am I going to make contact with now, with the present moment? That in its own has a built-in effect of a pause that is a course corrective measure. In my morning focus, and I treat all of these focus instructions as all day, all life, every breath. I'm here to be in my body and present. To live a life of mindfulness is not head work. It's actually in the body. And most of that work means I have to have contact with reality. I have a disease that likes to wander in the realm of fantasy. In the realm of shame, guilt, anger, resentment, worry, mental anxiety. And so on awakening, sometimes this disease has woken up hours before I have. And so my first conscious contact is not with God. It has been with a thought that says, go for it. Whatever it is, reach, sedate, whatever it is, reach for your drug of choice, take it. And so what happens? The night before has to happen. To have a spiritual hygiene doesn't mean I just set aside time to do something and then go back on my phone and then sleep. To have a hygiene that actually allows me to be ushered into a realm of the spirit. And so the first thing I reach for in the morning, my phone is always away from me. And it had to be a practice. A physical practice of noticing. The first thing I do is reach for my phone, even if it is to respond to my fellows. I have to make that conscious contact with a God that now shows up before I wake up as a step 3 prayer, as a step 7 prayer, as a serenity prayer. It now shows up like that because the practice has been proactively been built into the everyday way of life. Not just because I got to this step and it's like, okay, now let's get to this upon awakening stuff. Let us think about the 24 hours ahead. I'm a thought addict. I cannot afford to think about the 24 hours ahead in a traditional sense, but I understand this to be a consideration of what's ahead. Element of responsibility. God, what would you have me be type of approach? A meditation. We consider our plans for the day, family, job, newcomer, in that order. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking. Look at that in our step 3. We ask God to direct our thinking. Even the thinking that brings me back to full reliance on staying in this way of life. Especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. I am in love with this part of the book. Because it's talking about agency again. It's talking about regaining the ability to work with mental faculties that are God-given and decision-making becomes possible again. Under these conditions, what were the conditions? I asked God to direct my thinking. I asked God to specifically divorce me from self-pity, bondage of self, bondage of Kimia, from dishonest or self-seeking motives. Under these conditions, I can employ my mental faculties with assurance, for after all, God gave us brains to use. There you go. What are my mental faculties? Creativity, imagination, decision-making. These are the faculties that are God-given. They're beautiful. When used for that God consciousness without motives, what are the motives? God's will test. Must have all four principles. Honest, pure, unselfish, loving. If it has all those four, it's already in God's will. And so when I have the assurance that, yes, this passes, my mental faculties are with me, I am less likely to be making all kinds of calls to everybody who's, by the way, not a properly appointed authority, probably, asking them what they think about something. Should I? Should I not? And I now put other people in an awkward position to have an answer. This is a program of go to God. Go to your higher power. Or those who will connect you to that power. And so it says God has given us brains to use. What I also find very practical about this concept of understanding, my fellows have brains to use. I don't always have to be in that way of explaining, justifying, over-communicating things that become apparent to those who are willing to see. And so the inner codependent that likes to micromanage, martyr, mother, murder, it likes to do all kinds of things to have an outcome. I become less likely to approach life in that defeated self way of life. So I live and I let live because God has given others brains to use. Another space this becomes very interesting concept to use is when you are a target of gossip. You are a target of others not liking you, not liking me, let's say, right? To give others the ability to have that is a good thing. And to trust that those who will use their brains the way they want to have choice, and that's theirs. And I'll focus on what is rid of those self-seeking motives. When our thinking is cleared of wrong motives, it says our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane. What is that higher plane? God consciousness. That's a plane of neutrality. I understand it to be safe and protected. I understand there is no need for my defensiveness to even exist because nothing is personal. Nothing is anything but love. The attitude shifts. A smile appears. The shoulders calm down. In my midday focus, I'm thinking about my day. If we may face indecision, it says, absolutely, I'm an addict in recovery. In this way of life, indecisions will come up. It's actually quite responsible for me to see it as an indecision, as opposed to the conviction that I have the answer. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here we ask God for inspiration. Again, doesn't say go to your sponsor, doesn't say call 1,000 people who do not have any idea how to deal with you when you're absolutely insane. We go to God asking for inspiration, an intuitive thought or decision. What is that? That's my mental faculties. I'm asking God to give me assurance in them, inspire me. And sometimes God is not going to give an answer right away. And that pause, enter pause land, stay in pause land. What's the urgency? Urgency takes me right back into all layers of character defects that are trying to convince me I am my disease. I am the defeated self. It says we relax and take it easy. How many of us know how that actually feels? If you were to just trust that if I fell back and, the water would just hold me, I would just float. There's a lot of trust in that way of life. To relax and take it easy, to meditate and ask for direction. When I can't relax or take it easy, I just have to enter a space where I can hear my breath. To be able to connect to that higher consciousness that's built in within me. To let go and let God, there has to be an entry point. And in the body, that is the breath. We don't struggle. We're often surprised how the right answers come after we have tried this for a while. My addict right away says, how long is that while again? Is there somewhere that says around how long it's going to take until I'm free of this? I mean, a while is a lifetime of living for me. I only see this as a lifetime. If recovery was going to have an end date on my calendar, it would be forever. like literally forever till the end of time. Right? So in that, I get to remember to check my motives. How do I check my motives? Another beautiful way in step 11, I get to really see these are the motives. My motives are the basis upon which my disease gets to have its miracle growth. You know, like it just miraculously grows through these motives that are all my column for all my blockages. Everything that is not God's will. And so I get to check my thoughts. I get to check my thoughts before they turn into words, before they turn into a sentence, before they turn into a text, a phone call, an email, a conversation. And so what is that? Self-will test. It only needs to have one of these defects for it to fail the test, which means I would be in my self-will. Is it dishonest? Is it resentful? Is it selfish? Is it fearful? And so I know that I am in myself when the thought is dishonest, the act is dishonest, a way of life is dishonest, resentful, selfish, or fearful. One of them just disregards the whole thing. And so in God's will, I get to see, I call it the Huppel test, honest, pure, unselfish, and loving. It must have all four principles. Honest, pure, unselfish, loving. Is it honest, pure, unselfish, loving? And my fellows, I am surprised by how many of my questions about, is this the right thought? Is this the right decision? Is actually answered by the simplicity of this test. Is it honest? Is it pure? Is it unselfish? Is it loving? And it's very beautiful when we get to do this with others who also become a soundboard. If I'm actually not able to see that in my unselfishness, I'm very much so still selfish and have some underlying motives. And so we tease out the motives. You and I get to have our agency back. We usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer that will be shown all through the day, what our next step, which is our spiritual principles, is to be. That we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. We ask especially for freedom from self-will. Why is that? Because at the core of this disease is the self-reliance. This conviction that I am the one who will make these decisions, and I am convinced that I am in some kind of control. And so it convinces us, and it has a manifestation through which we get to experience that defeated self. And we are careful to make no request for ourselves only. Look at that. A selfless way of life, an altruistic plane of thought. We may ask for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. And what does that look like? God, grant me the ability to see so I can message my fellows back. Recently, when I had an experience with vision loss, it wasn't like, God, just make me see so I can have even less pain. I was like, God, you will know how I can be of helpfulness to my fellows. God, grant me the ability to do that. And God does. You know, can't move my fingers. God, give me the ability to serve others. You will show me where you will have me be. There is a way of approaching that. We never pray for our own selfish ends. I am a vessel through which others get to be helped. And so this vessel can be propelled by a power that wants its health and restoration. God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that, the selfish prayers, and it didn't work. It doesn't work. And so the best part of it all, the promises, they come through. And they come true. As we go through the day, we pause. As we go, that wording, the verbiage, as we go, there's mindfulness in that. It doesn't say when we went through the day. As we go through the day, I see it as an ing. It's active. It's in the present moment. As we go through the day, we pause. Yes, we enter pause land. Pause street, where God lives. Exists when agitated or doubtful, which again, it means when agitated or doubtful, there's a higher consciousness that's telling me you are agitated, you are doubtful, you are angry. So I don't show up as my anger. I see the sensation of anger rising. Maybe it's in my hands, maybe it's in my feet, maybe it's in the center between my eyebrows, maybe it's in the jaw, the clenching, right? And so Ask for the right thought or action. That's course correction. I see this one sentence as pause, connect, course correct. I pause when I'm agitated. I connect with God asking for the right thought or action, and I course correct. The course correction is the pause and the sitting in meditation to receive the answer. God, what would you have me be? And that's the prayer that comes to me, the fear prayer. I'm trying to mitigate. Calamity is being matched with serenity. Discord is being matched with harmony. And so we constantly remind ourselves we're no longer running the show. Humbly saying to ourselves, humbly. When I hear the word humble, humility, humbly, right away the shoulders drop. Humility. Standing tall and yet humbled. Kind of like a willow tree. Stands tall, but it's also dropped down towards earth. Humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, no half measures. Not like I did that in the morning, no, many times as it comes up. Thy will be done, thy will be done, thy will be done. We are then in much less danger of excitement, which is manic or high drama. This is not enthusiasm and zeal. This is an over type of a manifestation of even feelings or sensations. Fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. These all block me from power that allows me to see my purpose. We become much more efficient, absolutely, by default. We do not tire so easily. Yes, because these energy leakages are not there anymore. I'm here to give that energy to a power that provides, propels forward, augments. For we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves, which also means we were probably trying to arrange, I do try to arrange life to suit myself by arranging your life, by rearranging your life. This mindset that comes into the room that right away tries to redecorate, must be dropped. It says it works, it really does, and it does work. A way of life that cannot just be seen as a prescription written on paper. It has to be lived. A theory that is possible to be lived. And it's beautiful in both shapes. And so for those of us who are in this space of maybe delving more into meditation, some of you will know where to find me in those spaces as well. I'll provide you with my number. Reach out if it's of support. I will also drop into the chat a step 11 meditation that I've done for a workshop that we have, 12 steps in 4 hours, that happens on the last Sunday of the month. And it's the instructions that I even just went through during this talk in a meditative format. There are other meditations I've done on step 11 and the principle of awareness for step 11 as well. If anyone is interested in those resources, the highest resource of all remains to be God for me. The highest, most fresh resource of a power that allows for the next breath to be noticed. In that noticing of the breath, there is a relationship with a power being maintained and augmented. And I'm so glad to know that today I'm interested in that relationship. Where it says lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in what you can contribute to others in life. That's what it is. I've gained interest in this way of life. And I'm hopeful that this talk served you with a certain ease between your thoughts, that through your presence here, you are in this way of conscious contact. If you're willing to continue to hand this over to that power, you will know where to build in practices that are of meditative way of life. The mindfulness that knows when you reach for a doorknob and you open the doorknob, you're like, wow, I can move my fingers and fall in love with that and send a prayer to someone who can't. That way of life is the true way of at least a consciousness that is recognized as a gift. It's like thanking my creator every day that it has taken its time to create me. I love you all so much and I look forward to your reflections. That is the best part. Thank you.
Kimia, thank you so much. Words, I'm lost. So much information, so much inspiring, and